I want to talk to you about how I learned timpani parts for orchestra. So everyone knows this feeling when you're in orchestra, especially if you have like a solo note coming up, you're waiting through some rests and maybe, some other stuff is going on and you're sort of like, am I on measure 13 of rest? Am I on measure 14? And then you just go, bam! Oh my gosh, that was the wrong note. And the conductor looks at you funny. That is kind of an innate fear of mine. There was a certain point when I really learned how to be over-prepared for orchestra. So I went to Aspen when I was in high school. I was 17. It was before my senior year of high school. They have a conductor's orchestra at Aspen. It turned out that someone who was learning to conduct that summer was Don Liuzzi. He's the principal timpanist of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and he just happened to be there studying for the summer. And so normally when he wasn't working on conducting, he'd be playing timpani. There was one day where he was conducting Sibelius 2. The orchestra needed a different timpanist. And so they asked me if I would play. And I got so freaked out. I knew this was a difficult timpani part. So I called my teacher, Brian Jones, at home and I was like, hey, I'm here in Aspen. They asked me to play Sibelius 2 and like Don Liuzzi is gonna be listening to me. How should I learn it? He just said, Rob, get the score, get the part, and go over every section until you really feel like you know it. Over prepare. I sat on this bench in the front of the Aspen Music School for like probably 3 days with the score and the part, trying to figure out all the stuff about it. I felt so prepared. I made so many notes in the music. And when I got to the orchestra and the actual rehearsal, Don Liuzzi would be up there conducting and he would cue me and I would come in, boom, and then some other people wouldn't come in. And he'd stop the orchestra and say, okay, let's try that again. I felt so prepared. And because I was prepared, my only goal was to not get yelled at by the conductor, and I achieved that goal. So right now at the Met, I'm acting assistant timpanist. Ever since Scott Stevens left, I've been filling in the meantime. I'm calling myself the lame duck assistant timpanist. Right now, I'm in the middle of all my timpani work for the year. I'm playing Romeo and Juliet, I'm playing I Puritani, I'm learning Mozart's Idomeneo. So I want to show you exactly what I do in order to prepare and get ready for orchestra before I get to the rehearsal. So basically, I go through each section of the music 5 times. You might feel like that's overkill, but I've actually gone even further. Obviously, my main goal is to not do something terrible and stop the orchestra. So the first 3 times I go through it are in my apartment right here with my computer and the part and the score and the recording. And then the next 2 times I go through it are at the hall with the timpani and the recording and playing through. So the first time I go through, all I'm doing is scanning the part and trying to write down timings. I'm basically just marking up the part so that I know where to come back to in the recording, and I'm trying to get like a general idea of what's going on. So this is what I do next, and it includes the second and the third times through. I'll look at the part and I'll choose a small section, like maybe a minute of music, maybe 2 or 3 lines of music. I'll listen through to those 2 or 3 lines while watching the score and watching the part and listening to the recording. And I'll try to internalize everything I can and really understand deeply what's going on in the music. The goal here, remember, is when you're in orchestra, you can't have the score. You're not going to have time to look at the score and really understand everything. So you're trying to take everything you can soak up in the score, make notes in your music to remind you what's going on there. I go through every note, every measure, and I try to understand how the timpani part fits in, tonally, what pitch it's at compared to the other instruments, what the orchestration is like, where the melody is, how it fits in with the rhythmic structure, what the phrasing is like, and if there's any unwritten things that I'm hearing from the recording, I try to indicate those, and I use like arrows for phrasing. I write little notes like with trumpet. I put in cues of other instruments above it. I also mark things up like what's happening during the rest so that I don't get lost. And it ends up being pretty marked up. I'd rather have more information than not enough. Third time through, I go back over the same section and I actually forget about the score and I'm just sort of testing myself. Were there things that I heard that were important parts that I didn't indicate in the music? If that's all good, then I go to the next section and do my second and third times through there. So I get all the way to the end of the movement and I study the whole piece this way. Then I'm ready to go to the hall. What I do for my 4th time through is I don't work in sections of 2 or 3. I work on one movement or one page at a time. I'll listen through to that entire movement and I'll make practical playing notes like, do I need to change pitch here? Do I need to change sticks? I'm reminding myself how the piece sounds and I'm basically making a plan on how I'm gonna play through this movement. And then when I get to the end of that 4th time through, then I do it a 5th time through where I actually play along. And again, that's kind of a test too. I just want to see if I'm actually ready to play this with orchestra. And this is the point where I'll notice if any technical things are very difficult or if there's any tuning things I have to practice, if there's any quick switches that I have to just work through the choreography for. But after that, basically I'm done. I'm ready to go to orchestra. So my question for you is, How do you prepare stuff for orchestra? Is this a more thorough process than you're used to? What sorts of things do you think you could add to your process that would be useful for you to come into orchestra? Talk to me in the comments. We'll have a chat down there. I want to hear from you. And if you like this video, definitely subscribe. Give me a thumbs up. This is the channel where I get obsessed about one new topic every week because I think that's how you make the most progress in your musicianship. So if you have an idea for me, also let me know in the comments. And I can't wait to get back to you with a new topic, and I'll see you in the next video.